Good morning, everybody. It is Monday. It's a new week, and we've got lots and lots to cover today. For those of you that weren't here on Friday, or Thursday, or Wednesday, or much of last week, we are building a skill. Good morning, Locked In. We are building a skill that is for Alexa developers. So it's not only a reference guide, so you can look up things like speech cons and sound effects and a number of things like that, but it's also meant to be able to answer your questions and provide you access to resources that maybe you could Google and find this stuff, but it might be nice to just ask the device that's sitting on your desk while you're building skills. And so that's kind of the goal for today, is to get back into working on that skill, to get back into fixing a few things that we've left off, and then also talk about some of the stuff that I did over the weekend. I ended up sitting on the couch a lot of the weekend. It was a gorgeous weekend. But I spent a lot of time on the couch, but I had my laptop and I was writing some code and building some stuff for the skill. And I solved a few things. And so I thought we could start by kind of talking about what I did over the weekend, what's changed, what's new, and some of the stuff that we're going to continue to build as we grow into this. So the other thing I discovered this morning is that my Stream Deck does not want to cooperate for whatever reason. This is the thing that I use to flip between scenes. So I'm going to have to use a keyboard like an animal, and we're going to go to this view. Okay, so we'll just live here the rest of the time and we should be good. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about is that we have, if I come into my database, let's look at this one, and we're going to go to the table that I call data. And in here, one of the things that we were running into is that we wanted to be able to play a sound effect. Let me blow that up a little bit for you. We wanted to be able to play a sound effect from our skill. And we got through the process of everything, right? If we come in here and look at the code itself, let me dive into that too. Get random sound effect. This is where I was basically calling out to the database. In fact, we want to take a step back even from that. We want to come in here to sound effect intent. And this is where, if the user resolved something, if they resolved some value, then what we're going to do is pick one randomly from the list that matched. So the entity resolution that we had. Good morning, W. Giorgio. We're going to pick one randomly from the list that they resolved. But if they said they just want a sound effect, or they in some way didn't match something that's in the 1,000 sound effect database, then we're going to get a random sound effect for them. And this is something that we kind of ran into on Friday as a blocker, was the playing part of a sound effect. Because I have this piece here, wrap sound effect, and this is in my helper code, which we can dig into here. So let's go look at that first and see what we're doing there. Wrap sound effect is somewhere in here. Wrap. Okay, so we realized really quickly that we needed a category name. We needed the category that the sound effect lived in. Create my voice. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Glad you guys are here on a nice early Monday. And so I knew that I needed to be able to grab this category and be able to play it. So now we return all of this nice SSML, and we have the category and the effect. And if you look at my database now, you can see that I actually have the category for all of them here. I was able to parse a file that we had on Friday. I'm not going to open it again, but basically I had a file that had all of these folder names, basically these categories, and all I did was dump them into this category table. So some of them have one, some of them have two, but they're all here and they're all ready to go. And so I can just slide that category right into my statement, which looks like this. So I just have category, and then I have the name of the effect, and I can piece those two together, and we're off and running. So wrapping a sound effect, playing a sound effect is pretty easy once you have all the data. But here's the real challenge, and we talked about this on Friday as well, is how do I pick a random one? Now, this is something that I have battled with quite a bit as I think about Airtable, because there are, most of my database experience prior to Airtable or DynamoDB is SQL Server, right? And so I have a database that lives someplace, often in a similar location to where my application is running, because it's some desktop app or server app or whatever. And I just make a call into that server, or maybe I'm using some connection string and I'm talking to it remotely someplace. But it's a SQL server, and the way that I get data is by executing SQL statements against it, right? So I use the SQL language, select star from X, whatever, and you just go on and you collect data from that database. But you have the full power of SQL behind you, where you can just build these statements and do that. Well, with Airtable, and this is something that I've always acknowledged is a limitation of it, is that I'm not writing query statements against this. At best, I'm writing some filter lists or some formulas that will screen things out or meet certain conditions. And so it's very easy for me to do, like, get this record get the record that has this record ID, right? Like, I can do that with a formula. I can get things that are before a certain date, right? I can query against. I don't think I can do random, W. Georgia, and I'm going to talk about how I'm solving this, but I don't believe that there's a way for me to do this. Let's see here. We'll go look. I don't think so, though. Formula, field, reference. This is their reference guide for all the stuff that you can do in formulas, and I don't believe... No, random doesn't even exist on that page, and these are all the operators and things that I can use to query against my database. So I don't believe that there's a random function. So this is something that I've really struggled with, is how do I pick any random sound effect? If I want to query things down, if I want to filter them down, that's pretty easy to do, right? I could say, give me all the ones that are background ambiance, or give me all the ones that are horns or whatever. Like, if I have some metadata either between the name of the thing or between the category, I could filter this stuff down to maybe 15, 20 records, and then I could, on my side, I'd bring all 20 records out of the database and bring them to my application, and then randomly pick one of those out of the collection of JSON that I receive. So that's how most of the things are done here. In fact, anytime that I'm querying against the database and it's not specifically a record ID, but I want something else, what would be a good example of that? Give me a random answer, for example. When they just say, hey, give me something new, I filter this down so that I only pick things that the user hasn't picked before. So you can see in my user record that I keep track of the records that they've seen. And so then I can query against the answer table and say, well, give me any answers that don't have this user. And if we look at the answer table, you can see way out on the right-hand side that there's actually a user column. And so I can just pick ones that don't have my user's user ID in there. That's pretty easy. It's just it's a filter, right? It filters down the data and it gets me what I want. So the real trick to all of this is, how do I, especially for something like sound effect, where I have 1,000 records, I don't want to have to go get all 1,000 records that I have, bring them back to my application, right? So I have to call the API, it has to package them all up, it has to ship all of that stuff over the wire to my stuff, and then I have to parse that and randomly select one of them. That's a lot, especially because I don't know how many records are going to be in this table. This is going to be, ideally, the same table that we use to manage the sound effects for the the chatbot, right? And so if I'm using that same sound effect list and we can continue to add to it, then this becomes a growing problem, because now I can't even... One of the thoughts I had on solving this was, well, I'll just number the rows. I'll just number them 1 to 1,000 or 1 to 1,006 or whatever. And then for my app, I'll just generate a random number from 1 to 1,006. The problem is, on my application side, I don't know how many records are in this table, especially if it's going to change. And so then I have to make a call with a count, like, oh, there's 1,006 records. Okay, cool. And then I could make a second call. Good morning, Kevin Evans. I could make a second call to randomly pull one. But now I'm making 2 pings of the database, and I don't want to do that either. I want to be able to just bring back the stuff I want when I want it without having to make multiple calls or bring back a ton of data. And so the solution I have for this, and I wrote this on my blog over the weekend. So if you go to Blankenburg, which is here, you could read the whole article if you want to, but I'm kind of giving you a summary of it right now. But Airtable doesn't provide a way for me to retrieve a single random record from the database. This doesn't seem to be true in everything that I've looked through. So that is the premise that I'm operating under for the rest of my blog post. But the way that I end up doing this is that I looked at every record ID that we have in this table here, right? There's 1,000 records in this table, and they all have a random record ID. So I thought, well, what if I were to filter it down based on what a record ID contains? And so I sat here and I played for a little bit, and I said where record ID contains A. And just by doing that, you can't see it. Shoot. I would love for you to be able to see this. So let's undo that just so you can see this for a minute. Okay, so you can see that just by filtering by A, down here at the bottom, you can see that I have 361 matches. So now it's filtering down, and it's case insensitive, but you can see that every one of these records has an A in it somewhere. I could do this for B too, right? So I filter down for B, I get 358. Now remember, there's exactly 1,000 records in here right now. So if I get rid of the filter, you can see I have 1,000 records down there at the bottom left. I could do this for C. Oh wait, I still have 1,000 records because every one of the records starts with REC. So that's obviously going to match all of them. What about D, right? 364. It's pretty consistent, which means they have a good random distribution in their record ID randomization engine, right? If I do E, again, we end up with 1,000. But if I go to F, we always end up in this 350, 360 range, right? G. So we could do this, and then I could just say, like, randomly get a letter, and then I'm pulling back 360 or so records instead of 1,000. So we've cut it in a third. That's good. Okay. But then I thought, let's take this a step further. What if it was just any random pairing of letters? So like ZA. Now I end up with 10. What about like ZF? 8 records. ZR? 16 records. What about just like HT? It doesn't matter. I always come back with like 10, 15, 16 records. And I think this is because of the large distribution I have, right? I have 1,000 records. This wouldn't work with 100. But with 100 records, you could probably just use one character. And so this is the solution that I'm using to get a random sound effect, is that if we look at my code here, I have get random sound effect. In here, the first thing that I do is call a new function that I created called get random 2-character string, which we just saw there a second ago. And all it is an array of all of the letters. You can see that I'm missing E. There's an obvious reason for that we'll talk about in a second. And then all I do is get letter 1, get letter 2, and return them as a pair. So that then, when I call get random sound effect, out here at the end, I say, I want record ID to match whatever random pair of letters that I have passed in. And so it's just going to randomly get for me 10 to 15 or so records. I'm going to bring those back, and then I can randomly pick one of those. That's way better than pulling back 1,000 or even 360. So this is the way that I'm doing this. I don't know that it's the best way, and I haven't evaluated like processing speed to make 2 calls versus making 1 call, but this is 1 call. It gets me down to 10 or so records, and I ran through a lot of them, so I feel like I'm pretty confident that they're all going to match something. But this kind of solves that problem for me. It allows me to get a much smaller subset of data just by bringing back those 10 records, and then I call my get random item, which plucks one of them right out of that collection. So it's kind of an odd approach to how I would normally do this. I would much rather have Airtable allow me to just say, give me a random record from this table, and it sends me 1 back or 5 back or however many I indicate, but it doesn't seem like that exists. At least it's not available to me today. So this has been the solution that I've come up with in the meantime. Now, as you guys know, if you watch me, if I find a better way, I'll be the first one to admit this is not perfect. I'm happy to change this to another thing, but I just haven't found a better way. Not knowing the number of records in the table, I haven't found a way to, without making multiple calls, be able to figure out how to best grab a random record. And I can't find myself in a situation where I didn't get a record. I can't guess. I can't do those kinds of things. But I don't also want to exclude. If I start with 1,000, I don't want to exclude a record if there's 1,020 or 1,200 or 1,700 or whatever. I don't want to just limit myself to the first 1,000. So that's kind of where I've landed on this. I think it's kind of an interesting solution that it works out that way, that I can end up with 10 or 15 records just by sending in a pair of characters and matching it against a set of random strings. But it seems to work for what I'm trying to accomplish. So that's kind of how this is working today. So I'm going to get rid of this filter. I don't need this right now. But that is how I'm able to grab a record ID. And I think I will probably find myself doing that for more and more things. So the one thing that I mentioned was, if you look at my function, thanks W. Giorgio, is that I have a list of the alphabet here, but you can see that E is missing. A, B, C, D, and E is not there. The reason E is not there is because I'm doing a 2-character pair, and you can see that every record contains REC. So RE wouldn't work, EC wouldn't work, because those would both fail. So all I did was remove E from my list of data, from my list of options, and now I will never match RE or EC as potential pairs. There is the possibility, of course, that if I have C in there, that I'm going to end up with a lot of records. Like, what if I say, I haven't actually tried this. Let's see. If I say filter, add filter, where record ID contains like CR. Yeah, see, I get more like 50 records if C happens to be the first letter that's picked. But I'm willing to live with that case because I don't really want to get rid of C. That certainly gives me the possibility that I may never hit some records, the more letters that I exclude. So that's where we're at. So what if I do CC? That still gives me 49. So we're going to end up like more with 50 records, which isn't great, but it's not terrible. It's still way better than 1,000. But it's making me feel like maybe I should remove C also. Yeah, I just convinced myself. So we're going to get rid of C also. That wasn't something I had thought about the other day. But it means that there's a C in every single string, so C plus something will always result in more records. I thought it was being very clever only eliminating E, but I think C needs to go also. Okay, so that's how I'm doing the sound effect stuff. That is a way for me to be able to call and get a random sound effect, and all of it works now too, so I can show you that too. So we'll come into the skill, and we can say play a sound effect.
This sound effect is called Steam 11. What would you like to try?
Could you leave all the letters in a search, then remove the prefix REC from the result set? That's the problem, Greg. I don't have the ability to do that. All I can do is basically filter my database. And so because REC is in the results, and I can't do that, those are auto-generated by the database, and so I can't edit them. But because I'm only filtering that list, I don't have the ability to like bring them back and remove REC before I do something against it. I'm actually sending the filter statement to the database, and it's returning me records that match those filters. So I can't remove the REC, unfortunately. I think that there's 100 other ways I would do this if I had that kind of access, but it's more like an API than it is a database. So I can make specific statements against Airtable and say, hey, filter the data this way, or exclude these things, or even like only send me back. Oh, that's another thing I could do, is say max records 5. No, I don't want to do that either. Because I can indicate how many records it should send me back, but that would mean that every time like we have XR, if those are matched, I'm going to get my 15 records back. But if I say only give me 5, I'm always going to get those first 5, which means those other 10 will never ever get released. I'd rather have the 15 come back and then I randomly pick from one of those. That at least keeps the odds up that I'm going to play you one you've never heard before. I'm with 1,000 of them. That's probably highly likely anyway. But that's how it works. So I say this sound effect is called Steam 11. Now what's cool about this is that then you can say play Steam 11. Let's see if I can type 11.
This sound effect is called Steam 11.
And once you know the name of one, it'll get that one for you automatically and play the same sound and whatever.
What would you like to try?
Now, there are some tricks to that because as we look at our data, which is here somewhere, you can see that the naming that they used for some of these is terrible. I have Airhorn through Airhorn 01 through Airhorn 04, and then I also have Airhorns 01 through 09. Now this is a collection of sound effects that came from Amazon. All we're doing is pointing at them, but this naming convention means that if I say play Airhorn 04, it could potentially bring back either one. And so I don't really... not to go off the rails, but how do you get a list of all ISPs? I can show you that in just a second, W. Giorgio. But that is... these kinds of conflicts run into each other. And so if I say Airhorn 04, what actually happens is I get both of them to come back. I think we can see that in the demo here. So if I say play Airhorn 04... it's going to play the Airhorns 04, but if we look at my resolutions, if we look at what actually came back, you can see that I got both of them.
What would you like to try?
And so what I do is if I get multiple records, I just pick one randomly, because it doesn't matter that much. But it's unfortunate that there's Airhorn and Airhorns, because Alexa thinks they're both very, very similar. And so that is that forces me to just randomly pick one. I guess I could pick the first one, which is probably the best match. But I guess it just doesn't... In this case, it just doesn't matter that much. You're just trying to hear some sound effects. I also send you in as a card. We can see that here. Is that I say you can use this sound effect in your skill with the following SSML, and then I give you like the actual SSML in a card that you could copy out of that and use in your code. So if we go to Alexa, maybe Alexa.amazon. If we go to this page, W. Giorgio, I haven't forgotten about you. I'll get to that in just a second. You can see in here that I have, you can use the sound effect in your skill while using the following SSML syntax, and then I have the sound effect code right here, right? So I can just take this, and I could copy this and drop it right into my app. So I think that the cards are actually going to be a good resource for developers as they're building, because then you can say like, hey, play this SpeechCon or whatever, right? So if I come back here and I say, say Bazinga. This works the same for the SpeechCons. Bazinga. What should we do now? But over here behind the scenes, you can see you can use the SpeechCon in your SIL with the following syntax. And now you have exactly the syntax that you need to be able to do that. I don't know why I put the break time 5 on there. I think I do know, because I put the break on there for myself, but I feel like you don't really need that, and I should have removed it. Anyway, that is how a lot of this skill is going to work, is like, hey, here's the thing you need to go do. If I say something like, I don't think I'm doing this for answers yet, but I will be. Tell me about Blankenburg.
You asked me about Undefined.
You asked me about Undefined.
Jeff Blankenburg is an Alexa evangelist at Amazon. You can find him on Twitter, Twitch, and
but I did not write a
Jeff
card for that. So that's something that I'll have to add.
//jeffblankenburg.info for more information.
We're gonna look at that right now, because that's the stuff that we're gonna work on today. So we're gonna go to the answer intent, and then I promise, W. Giorgio, we're gonna get to that. So you asked me about... You asked me about name, because I didn't capitalize it. There we go. Okay, so now if we do the same thing, it should say, you asked me about Jeff Blankenburg.
You asked me about Jeff Blankenburg.
By the way, how fast was that, right? This local debugging is killer.
You can find him on Twitter,
okay, so this is where we're at today. We've got the sound effects working, we've got the SpeechCons working, we've got the answers working, and I've entered a bunch of other data into the database. Not a ton, but I've added a bunch of other records and been thoughtful about how we want to answer these questions. So if we look at our answer table, you can see in here that I've added synonyms for a lot of these now. And one of the other things that I did is I went through all of my colleagues and I created a phonetic sound for their names if Alexa wasn't pronouncing them properly. And so I need to vet this with each of them to make sure that it's actually pronouncing it properly and not just the way that I think it should be pronounced. That would be a bad miss. But this is phonetic spelling for Akur Shrivastava, Andrea Mattoni. There's a few others down here that needed that. Herman Viscuso, he's based in Spain. Karthik Raghupathi, and I'm not sure about his pronunciation, but Karthik's always around, so I'd love to make sure that I got that right. So when he shows up, we'll ask him about that. And then in Japan, we have Toshimi Hatanaka, but I don't know the right emphasis. So I don't know where the right emphasis on his last name is. Is it Hatanaka? Is it Hatanaka? I don't know where I should put that break. So I'll work with him on that, but it's just a matter of moving this little apostrophe right here. So that's some of the stuff that I've done. I also added some answers and a lot more URLs. I just found an error, but we have all of these Alexa.design links, and that's one of the other things that I want to make easy for people is if you don't know what something is, I want it to be natural for you to be able to type in Alexa.design/something, right? Whatever it is you're thinking about, and have that resolved to the page that would help you. So you can see here that I have prefixes. This is also what the chatbot uses, the Alexa chatbot. So all of these will be filled in, and we'll have links for all of them. But the idea is to have an Alexa.design link for literally everything. And we do. We have probably 100,000 of these pointing to all sorts of different stuff. But I want to make sure that the core things, the things you're really interested in, are all pointing to the right place. So, okay, let's do a little sidebar, and we're just going to talk about ISPs for a second. I don't plan on building any ISP stuff today, but I can show you how it works and how to answer W. Giorgio's question, which was, how do I get a list of the things that have been sold or that are available for sale? So give next puzzle, that's not what I want. I want like the buy intent. We have like a buy. Yeah, let's go there. Brian, no, I'm not doing anything special. The simulator tends to wait forever. Like when I started up this morning, I just typed in another command and it still had the session from last night. So no, I don't think, like the way that I think of the simulator is that it just holds on forever. With a device, obviously that would not be the case, but with my simulator, no, it seems to hold on for a very, very long time. All right, so I want to do this thing for W. Giorgio, and here it is. Okay, so I have this Get Monetization Service client. I'm assuming you're using this. W. Giorgio, you probably even have this in your code already because you do this for everything. And then in here, I also have a locale, right? This is just a locale of the user. This line here, await MS Get in-skill products. This is actually getting you a list of the products that are available for sale in the locale that the user is currently in. This gets you that. Then, so once we've done that, then I have a then here, and I have a check for product access. This is a function that makes sure that the user has whatever information they need, whatever. But this is the line that really matters. This is where you're going to filter down and find and grab the individual products. So you already have them right here once we do Get in-skill products. But you can see that in here I have result coming through. And result.inskillproducts.find, this is me just finding things in a collection. And I'm saying I want you to find the one where the reference name of that product is subscription. And I want you to get me a reference to that. So that this subscription then becomes a reference to that product object that came back from my my query into the Get in Skill Products function. I do the same thing with hint. So I have a product called hint. Return await versus return. You have to do return await if you're doing something asynchronous inside, and you can see that all of these things, this async get for product access, all of these things, I thought I had another asynchronous call in here too. The only time you need await is when you know that you can't do anything else until you get this response back. The caller has to be async though too, I agree. So if you look, my function is async, then I'm awaiting this call, and all of this calls out to an API, gets some information, and comes back. So viable clan member, I hope that answers your question, but that's why I'm returning await instead of just returning. because I'm making this additional call out right here. So I hope that answers your question. So W Giorgio, that's kind of the answer to that question. Is you get the collection of products that are available for a user for sale with this right here. Let my people code. Who is this? Welcome to the show. Oh, I do know who this is. This is Greg. He has changed his username. So this is Greg Bullmash. Welcome to the show. I read his tweet this weekend that he has decided to change his username everywhere. And so let my people code. I believe that is Greg Bullmash. Please tell me if I'm incorrect. But I think I'm right. Okay, so I'm going to close this down. W. Giorgio, let me know if I didn't answer your question. But I think I did. So let's get back to the work at hand, the thing that we need to do today, which is to refactor a couple of things. Yeah, Yiddish Ninja has gone by the wayside, it sounds like, and he can tell that story here if he'd like. I am going to talk. Let's talk about what we really wanted to do here. So I've made some changes. One of the things that I noticed, if we're going to back out here, and we look at my dev tips data, you can see that I used to have data and speech, and then I've created these new tables, speech cons and sound effects. Now, the reason that I've done this is primarily because of this pink box. This is me trying to be elusive with the Airtable restrictions, which is that each database, so each one of these blocks, should not have more than 1,200 records. If it does have more than 1,200 records, then you need to basically upgrade your account. And if we click on upgrade, you can see that the options here are $10 per user per month, get you 5,000 records and 5 gigs of storage. $20 per user per month, get you 50,000 records and 20 gigs of storage. So I was already at like 3,000 records because of the sound effects. That's 1,000 on its own. And then when we talk about answers and speech cons, the number starts to escalate pretty quickly. And so I thought, man, if I break these out, then I can continue to stay here, because like sound effects has 1,000 records right now. It's under the 1,200, probably a good way to stay under there. And it requires pretty minimal changes in my code to make this happen. So that's one of the things that I'm doing, is just refactoring a little bit. Since we have so much data, I'm trying to get back to this tier. Now there is going to be a point not long from now where this skill actually goes to production, and I'm going to have a team of people working on it. At that point, then I will pull the trigger and upgrade, because I think Airtable deserves every dollar they're asking for. I can't justify it yet. And so that's because I'm just in the build process. But I think once the app is up and running and people are using it, I should definitely be paying them for access to what I'm using it for. So let's go back and talk about what I'm doing. So I have already taken this table, SpeechCon, which has 313 records, but we'll have more. We have SpeechCon type, which are classifications that I want to apply to all the SpeechCons. I haven't done a very good job of this yet, but you can see I have a couple of them. And then I also have this sound effect table, which has 1,000 records in it right now. So all three of these I want to be able to get rid of, but I can't do that until I have changed my code to point to the new location. So let's talk about that. So the first thing that I want to do is think about, where am I doing SpeechCons? So SpeechCon intent is where I start, and I have a few places that I do this. I have get random SpeechCon. I think that's probably pretty much the only place that I really need to worry about this, because we're either getting a SpeechCon automatically based on entity resolution, in which case we make no calls to the database, or we need to get a random SpeechCon, and in this case I am doing what I mentioned earlier. I'm pulling back all of them for just a locale, so it's a smaller number, but I'm pulling back all of them for a specific locale, and then really getting into it. So let's go to my Airtable folder for get random SpeechCon, and the only thing that I need to change here, if we look at my query, is I call out to a database. I have a table name. My API key is going to be the same. My filter by formula is all going to be the same. Locale, all that. The only thing I want to change is this. SpeechCon. So what I've done is created two new bases, right? We talked about that a second ago. If we come back and look at this, I have SpeechCons and I have sound effects. So in here in SpeechCons, I've already moved all the data, and the table structures and everything are identical. So all I have to do is change the reference to that, and we're good to go. So I think that solves that problem for me for speech cons. That looks like if I, let's close some files down and just keep our focus on what we should be on, which is the speech con intent. This is the only place that I call get random speech con. That's the only time that I would call the database for that. And this, in Airtable, get random speech con, this is what we just changed. And this is the new Airtable value that we're using. So I think that's the only change I need to make. Now for get random sound effect, I think we're going to be a little more complicated. So let's look at sound effect intent and see what's going on there. So this is get item by record ID, where I'm calling into base data. So I think I want this to now be sound effect. This is where I'm calling and just getting one specific record because I know exactly what I want. But then I also have get random sound effect here, and this is where we're going to call out and get the sound effect that we need. And so this is going to be my trouble case, I would imagine. So let's look at get random sound effect and see what's going on there. So again, we're going to change this. I think this is it. I think that this is all the refactoring I needed to do in my code. Sound effect. The table is still called sound effect, API key filters, all that stuff is there. So it is possible, let's just give it a test, that everything is working now. So if I say, give me a sound effect, hopefully this just works.
Jeff, you broke
no,
something.
it did not work.
What would you like to
What
do
did
next?
we do wrong? Cannot read property length of undefined in helper.js on line 98. Is there? Oh, you know what? In helper, I am doing something. No, this is just get random item. So why didn't it bring something back? Well, we got get random sound effect, and then we blew up. So let's go look at get random sound effect and see what I did wrong. Airtable based sound effect. That all looks good. What could be the problem here? Airtable based sound effect. We're going to flip over to, it's still not working. We're going to flip over to the camera just for a moment so you guys can look at my pretty face while I am looking at something here just to make sure. Airtable base sound effect. That seems right. Let's look at the API thing real quick. Sound effect, create record. It ends in that. That is correct. Why? Well, let's do one more thing. We're going to do a console.log. I know you guys can't see, but this is one of those moments where I'm using API keys and I don't want you to see them. So that is why you can't see right now. So what I'm doing is I'm adding a console log statement to my get random sound effect, so that I can see the entire path that I'm calling into Airtable that includes like my API keys and stuff. And so then I can see exactly what that path is and see why we're not getting any records back. And it's because, I think this is a database problem, like a issue with my table itself. So if we can go back to looking at the right things. So we'll go back here. Okay. Yeah, no rows were returned, but it was because I've apparently missed a column. So if we look at, let's look at our table here for a second. I'm guessing it's the new table. And let's look at the old table just to compare and contrast. So this is, if we come into data and we look at sound effect, you can see that I have this record ID column. I'm using that to query against, but I didn't create it here for whatever reason. So this is an easy fix. We're just going to insert left. We're going to say record ID, and then we just say know if it gives me that, but we just want a formula. And the formula is going to be record ID. So this is all that was missing. I was trying to query against this table, but it didn't exist. So if we come back here and say, give me a sound effect.
This sound effect is called tone.
So it was just that I was trying to, remember we just talked about sending an alphabetical pair in and being able to do that stuff. Well, if the field doesn't exist, even though record ID is a thing and it always exists, you can't query against it unless you've actually made it a table or a column. So that's fixed. So that one's good. Now what if I say, give me a random speech con?
I picked a random topic for you. Node.js.
Ooh, didn't like that.
Undefined. What would you like to do next?
What are some of my? I gotta flip back one more time just to make sure that I didn't leave anything open like a dummy. So, yeah, I did. So for this one, for the sound effect intent, speech con intent, get random speech con. I also want to look at my model and see why it thought I was asking for an answer rather than... Okay, so this is my model. We're going to come back up to the very top, which is this file's getting so big. Let's look at the answer intent. It says tell me about or what is, whatever, that's fine. Change voice, display template, timer intent, that's stuff we'll talk about here in a minute. APL, get news, speech con intent. Give me a speech con. I don't have random as one of the options. Wow. Okay, so let's fix that too. It's not going to fix right now, but I should have like give me a random speech con. I'm also going to add a category slot to this at some point. Let me hear a speech con. Give me a speech con. Give me that's okay. That's fine. So we've updated that a little bit. But what we want to do is come back here and just say something that actually works with my model. Give me a speech con.
Here's a random speech con.
Totally kidding.
Totally
what would you like to know? Okay, so now our speech cons are working too. So now the moment of truth, we're going to come into our data structure and we're going to take this speech con table. Oh, this is scary. Delete. Speech con type. Delete. Sound effect. Delete. Whew. Hurts. It's good to do, but it hurts. And so now if I hit over limits, one of the things you can see down here is that my data table still has 2,000 records in it. I don't think that's accurate, but maybe it is. My speech table has 58 records. That will grow significantly. Speech cons has 358, and sound effects has 1,000. So we're still significantly over the limit here, but again, I haven't had Airtable shut me down just because I'm over. I'm sure that there's some amount of time that I'm going to run into where they're like, look, dude, you've been over for 30 days or 60 days or something. You need to either pay or fix it. But for now, we're just going to live with it as is. So what is the thing that has all my data in it now? Because user table has nothing. Locale, country, all those are, like, I want to move this stuff over too. Because locale, country, and language are really just to generate my locales. Where's all the... Oh, this is 52 records. That's fine. Those are from office hours. User has 1. Answer has 99. No, what do you say? What? Data does not have 2,000 records anymore. Sorry. That's just not true. I think maybe that only gets updated occasionally. This has got to be way under 1,200 now. So I'm feeling really good about this. That's great. My machine is going to be quarantined if I don't install some software. I tried to install it this morning, and it failed. I don't know what you want me to do about that. Found no third... that's great. Yeah, and now I can't get rid of this. I acknowledge that I have to do something with my machine. Cool. Get off my screen. Okay, so yeah, this is not a live update because I definitely don't have that many records in here. So what that gets us is a clean data table. Now, as we generate data, as we put things in here, certainly this will grow. But it's kind of nice that we were able to just break those things out. They're kind of standalone things anyway. One of the things, the compromise that I'm making here is that every time somebody uses that data, sound effects and speech cons, I don't really have a way to pair that with my user record, because this data doesn't transform well across. So I have a user ID, a record ID, all that stuff. I'd love to be able to do this. Hey, they've heard these answers. Hey, they've heard these speech cons. Hey, they've heard these sound effects. I can't do that now, at least not in this kind of relational way. I could store the record IDs over there, but it would be meaningless, which isn't nearly as fun. So I don't, but I also don't think it matters much. So if I come back to my sound effects table, for example, I could just put a simple counter on these every time that I play one or something like that, but I just don't know how important that really is. And it's another call to the database every time to like increment values. So I'm not going to worry about it for now. If it becomes important, it's certainly something I could do, but I wanted to refactor that and get those things out of there, because now I have a much cleaner set of data structures. Speech is still all the speech that I'm going to generate for my skill. Speech cons and sound effects are kind of obvious. And if we run into more collections of things like that, we'll just create another one. But this data table is now in a really good place. Okay, so I said on Twitter that I was going to cover 3 things today, and I think we've already, in 45 minutes, covered 2 of them. So if I go to my profile, what was the third thing I said I was going to do? Handling pronunciation. Yeah, okay, so the rest of the thing that I really wanted to dig into today is my answer intent. What's going on Twitter? Anybody say anything fun? Just a couple retweets. Those are appreciated. Let's go back in here, and we'll look at our answer table. So this is something else that all of you are going to run into at some point in your skill building careers, and I really struggle with how to solve this problem. So let me just show you how this works. So if I come into my skill and I say, tell me about a Kirsch.
I found 3 matches for
You can
A
see
Kirsch.
I've added some
Did
fake
you mean
metadata
Alexa
to the skill.
Cookbook,
That's why it's
a Kirsch
responding with weird
Srivastava,
things.
Or David Isbitsky?
But here's the real trick, and if you heard it, I think she said A Kirsch Srivastava or something like that. It was very, very odd, very bad pronunciation. Or maybe she didn't. Maybe because I already fixed it. But if I just take, we're gonna do this another way. I'm gonna take my audio and I'm gonna pump it out of my machine. I'll just turn my volume up so you guys can hear it. But I would like to be able to hear it, and I don't want to wear headphones today. So if I take a Kirsch like this, and I go into voice and tone, this is how she pronounces his name natively.
Akirsh Srivastava.
Akirsh Srivastava. That's definitely not right. What we want is the Akirsh Srivastava, and you can see that when I passed that message in, I said, did you mean Alexa Cookbook? And then I have this nice phoneme tag with his name. So we'll come in here and grab that. Maybe. Like so. So I'll copy that, and I'll just do this on the second line. You can see how it's pronounced versus how it's supposed to be pronounced. It looks like I broke something. Oh, they don't want the escapes. Gold Zulu, good morning. We've covered a lot already this morning, so you've missed out. But what we're focused on right now is a problem that every developer is going to run into when they're trying to get Alexa to pronounce things. So I'm working on a Kirsch's name because she does not pronounce it very well. And so I'll give the original pronunciation and then my phonetic sounds so you can see this.
Akirsh Srivastava. Akirsh Srivastava.
Right? Very, very different pronunciations, and a Kirsch would, of course, want his name to be said properly at all times. So the challenge that I really run into is, especially for these disambiguation scenarios. So you can see that I said, tell me about a Kirsch. A Kirsch matched 3 records, and then I said, I found 3 matches for a Kirsch. Did you mean this one, or this one? We built that functionality a while ago, and the way that I'm doing that is I'm using maybe, the entity resolution that I have here. Cookbook, Akir Shrivastava, David Ispitsky. Now, the reason that these three come back is because I've actually tagged them that way. So if we go look at my data, you can see that in my synonyms, if I take the cookbook, wherever that is, I did it in the actual model, so I guess we'll have to look here. So if I find a Kirsch, I just threw them in here to get them to work. So a Kirsch, of course, has that as a synonym, but if I keep going to the next one, you can see that I added it as a synonym for the cookbook, and I added it as a synonym for David Ispitsky. So they're in my model that way. That's not doing any kind of weird matching. I just added them to do some testing yesterday, and I haven't removed them yet. But so they have those synonyms, and when I come in here, these are the three matches that I get. Now, what I would normally do, and what I've recommended to everybody forever, is just use the values that you're getting from your slots to be able to match on those things. The problem with this is that if the pronunciation for that slot is wrong, Alexa's going to say it wrong. Right? I mean, that's the natural beauty of this, is that I don't have to call the database. I can just use the resolutions that I got and ask the user, which one did you mean? But then I'm going to say it the wrong way. I'm going to say his name the first way here.
Akir Shrivastava.
Because that's
Akir Shrivastava.
That's the natural way that Alexa says this set of letters. But I don't want that to ever happen. I don't want that to be a situation where his name sounds mispronounced. So what I've done instead is I changed my disambiguation function. So just so you guys can recall how this works, I'm going to go to the answer intent first. And what we do is we say, if we only got one record, if we only got one match back, then we're going to go ahead and do some stuff. We're going to go get the record from the database, and we're going to use it. And then right here, this is where I'm starting to fix my pronunciation. If I want their name to equal fields.name, but if they have a pronunciation value in my database, then I want it to use that instead. And so you can see in my data that for every answer, I potentially have a pronunciation column. I don't have it for all of them, but I definitely have it for the things where Alexa doesn't say it properly. And for some of these, you'll notice that I try to avoid heavily using the words Alexa, Amazon, AWS, Echo, anything that's going to be on a ton of these things. I try not to use those things. So even for the cookbook, you can see that I just have cookbook, but my pronunciation for it is Alexa cookbook. So what should happen is if you match cookbook, I go and I get that record, and when I bring it back, when I talk to you, when I speak it, I use the pronunciation value instead. So I can say, oh, you asked me about the Alexa cookbook, right? But if I put Alexa in the actual term, in the actual slot value itself, there's the possibility that that'll come back a bunch of different ways because someone just said, tell me about Alexa, or tell me more about this thing, or whatever. So I'm limiting the amount of entity resolution I'm going to get because it's not part of my name, it's not part of my synonyms, but it's a pronunciation value that I can use when I want to say the thing back to the user. So what I had to do here is just say, if there's a pronunciation value, use it, otherwise use the name. And, excuse me. And then I also do something interesting in the case where there's more than one. So when we resolve more than one thing, this is where I get into disambiguation, and this is where I have to say something like, oh, I found 4 records for whatever it is you said. Jeff is a good example, right? We bring back Jeff Nunn and Jeff Bezos and me. And so in that case, I would want to clarify, which one did you mean? So this is where the trouble... Goldzulu asks, how did I enter the phonetic weird characters in Airtable? I copied and pasted them. They go in there just like anything else. It worked really well, actually. But in my disambiguation, which is in helper, I broke a rule. My helper, if I can find it, get disambiguation. I am now using Airtable inside my helper, which I never wanted to do. But I just don't see a way around this. So what I normally do is just this piece right here, which is loop through the records that I got in my results, separate them by commas, And then the last two, separate them by the word or. So it'll say, did you mean Jeff Bezos, Jeff Nunn, or Jeff Blankenburg, right? That's how natural language would sound. What I have to now do is for each record, I have to call Airtable, and I have to get the entire answer record, and then I'm grabbing pronunciation if it exists. Otherwise, I'm just using the name. Karthik, good morning. Actually, Karthik, I have a task for you this morning, and I'm glad you're here. We're working on pronunciation of words that Alexa does not pronounce properly. And you are a good example of that, because if I come in here and I find Karthik, we'll use you as an example. I was using a curse, but we'll flip over to you now. So for you, I'm going to take this, and I'm going to put your name in here like that. And then I'm also going to take the phonetic spelling I made of your name, which may or may not be right, and that's what I need your help with, is take this piece. And so now I have the first and the right and the wrong. So here's the first one and the second one in order.
Karthik Raghubati. Karthik Raghubati.
So I don't think either of them are right. In fact, I struggled with finding the car, like the ah sound, in the Karthik. And so I want to know, I'll get rid of the first one because we know that's wrong. But as I think about saying your name,
Karthik Raghubati. Karthik Raghubati.
it kind of says Karthik. Is that a preferred pronunciation? Because I feel like I need a ah, and it's definitely not Raghubati. I would imagine that's not proper. But I'm saying
Karthik Raghubati.
we need to figure out how to pronounce this. So I don't know if you want to put together your own phonetic spelling. I agree, the earlier one had it right, but I'm trying to figure out how to phonetically do that. And let's just do this because I think this is useful for everybody. So SSML phoneme. Raghubati. Oh, you want a hard T. Raghubati. Okay, we can do that. So let's talk about phonemes. If you guys haven't played with these before, there's an alphabet. And so I'm using the English US one. And there's consonants and then there's noun sounds. I'm using this. I don't want that one. Fa. It's probably father. It's probably that one. So let's come into my data. And let's fix this. Karthik. And we don't want the TH. We want a hard T. A hard T, I think, is just a T. Trap. Yeah, so let's fix that. Nope. Here? Yeah. So let's take that. That might be better.
Karthik Raghubati.
Ra. Gu.
Karthik Raghubati. Karthik Raghubati.
Ra. I want Ra. I'm not Ra. Ra. How do we get Ra? Ra. A. It really seems like it should be that one. Ra. Arena. I don't think I want Ra. Maybe this instead? We'll see how that sounds. If I just take out the Karthik. Whoa.
Karthik Raghubati.
Raghubati. That sounds right?
Karthik Raghubati.
What if I had two T's?
Karthik Raghubati. Karthik Raghubati.
It should be Ra. Ra. Let's see. Ah. 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 I mean, it does seem like it should be this. It really does.
Karthik Raghubati.
We could also talk about where the emphasis should go. How do you like that one, though?
Karthik Raghubati.
We're getting closer. Maybe you should send me your phonetic sound of how this should go, so that I can make sure it's right in the database. But the other thing is the emphasis, right? If I take this and I put it here, now it sounds like this.
Karthik Raghubati.
Okay, no problem, Karthik. But just know that I'm thinking about this, and I want to make sure I get it right. W. Giorgio, thanks for being here, man. Sorry you have to go, but I understand.
Karthik Raghubati.
But the problem that I was really trying to solve is, how do I make sure that even in those disambiguation situations, how do I make sure that I'm saying the words properly? Because I don't ever want there to be a time where it's wrong. And so the way that I solve that is, when I'm getting my disambiguation, I basically just need to call and get the record and get the pronunciation for it, because there's no place for me to store that stuff. This is something that comes back to things that I just really wish I could fix, which are that I have all this metadata here. This is all I get to save for a slot value, is a name and an ID. And if you look at my structure here, right, I get a name and an ID and some synonyms. I really wish that I got more information from the results that I could package up and store with this stuff, because there's other things that I want to know. Maybe I want to know the pronunciation. Like, that would be a huge thing to be able to store with this. But yeah, I don't know a better way to do what I'm doing right now, other than to have to call back to the database, look up the pronunciation, and then say it. But if I could store more information with each individual element, then yeah, I would do that for sure. And then this stuff would just come through, and I could use the pronunciation if it existed. But we don't have that, so this is where we are. Okay, so that being said, we're now in a position where we've kind of talked about a few of these things. So what I also wanted to do today is talk about what's going on in this table. I could add it as a synonym. I totally could. The problem with that, of course, is that I don't get the synonyms back when I match something. So even if I were to save it as a synonym, because the mispronunciations will still match. Like, Alexa will still match the right thing and bring it back for me. The problem is that when she brings it back, she doesn't tell me what the synonyms were. I don't have the list of synonyms provided to me. So even if I wanted to, like, be a rogue and, like, stuff that stuff in there, it would be pretty hard to do. I could potentially do it where, like, I'm combining a bunch of data inside this ID, I guess, where, like, instead of just that, I have like colons or vertical bars or something that separate out the values that I'm storing. But I think there's a limit to how much data can be in that ID. I don't think you can. I think there's a maximum length. So that would also potentially cause problems for me. I don't know. It just feels like, couldn't I have it one additional value, or maybe that we just acknowledge that pronunciation is important and include that as a value for every slot, so that you can provide SSML in there, basically. I don't know the right answer, but I will definitely be bringing this up with folks, because this feels universal. If you're going to give me entity resolution, you should also give me the ability to figure out how to pronounce it without calling back to my database. But I can't store the raw pronunciation as the slot value, because then I wouldn't get any matches, or I might get too many matches. So it's a catch-22, at least right now. Hopefully we can figure out ways to get around that. So for this answer table, which is here, I have a bunch of things in here, right? Like, Amazon Pay or Alexa Live or Alexa for Business or whatever. These are all things that you may want to know about. Carlos Ordonez, custom slots, Dashwand. Like, these are all things that I can put in here. What my question for you is, are these things that you would ask about? Like, if I say, tell me about the champions, right? I can come out here, I think I have it, and I can say champions and then give you this thing. So if I do that, come in here and say, tell me about the champions.
You asked me about Alexa champions. Undefined to learn more. Check out http://alexa.de/champions.
Huh.
What should we do now?
That's interesting. She doesn't say that properly. What should we do now? So this isn't going to be the final content for this. In fact, I didn't think there was an answer for champions. Where was that coming from? What in the world? Oh, I think maybe that's just how I put the speech together. Oh, yeah. To learn more, check out this URL. Alexa.de sign, she said. Interesting. I'm probably going to have to create a pronunciation formatter for the URL so that she just says alexa.design/champions. That's what I want her to say. Well, that'll be a fun project. We can do that today. So you asked me about Alexa champions. The undefined is where the answer would be, but you saw that I don't have any data for Alexa champions in my voice response. That's what would be said here. I don't have card responses or anything else either. But when we say the URL, we need to fix that. So let's look at how that's being done, and then we will make it better. So in my answer intent, I have this new piece that I added here, which is, you asked me about name. And name is where I convert from name or pronunciation, so we should be saying this the right thing there. But then I say the voice response. And then I replace a link intro that I probably grabbed earlier, this thing here. So let's look at that first. If we look at our speech data, I have a answer link intro, and they look like this. I don't know why it keeps opening this views tab for me every time now. You can find more out at link. Visit link for more information. To learn more, check out link. Right, so these are all different ways that we might say, hey, go to this URL. Randomizes it, fluffs it up a little bit. So if that's the case, if that's what I'm doing here, then I say replace link with the URL itself. But what I want to do is do a helper. Well, let's not do that yet. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's go write that function first. So we go into helper, and this is where we're going to tweak up some alexa.design URLs. So we're going to say function convert URL to speech. And here we're going to have the link. Let's do this consistently. Convert link to speech. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is that every URL is going to have an HTTP or an HTTPS. So we're going to get rid of those first. So we're going to say var speech. No, not var. Let speech equal link dot replace. And we're going to get rid of HTTP : //. We don't want that. We don't care about it at all. Then we're going to replace HTTPS : // because I don't know if I'll have one or both, but it'll have those for sure. And that's only if they don't exist, then that's great. Then we don't have it at all. But I think that we'll want those in there for when we use it for the chatbot and other things, so that they're easily clickable. I don't want to have to remember to add them in or not be sure if they're there. So that's my first piece. I have speech, and I've replaced the HTTP and the HTTPS. Then I can say speech equals speech dot replace we're going to take dots, and we're going to place them with the space dot, and we'll do replace. No, this is actually an interesting JavaScript trick. If you guys don't know this, there's multiple dots at a URL, right? We have, if we look at our actual data for an answer, let's look at a URL and really take these apart. So I have alexa.design, but I also have like aws.amazon.com. I have multiple dots. So for those of you that have used replace before in JavaScript, you know it only replaces the first instance that it finds. You can add additional options to have it start in a certain place so that you're not like you're skipping over the first one or whatever, but there's no way to just do more than one using replace. I wouldn't expect any of my URLs to have HTTP or HTTPS more than once. That feels like it would be broken. But I would expect multiple dots or potentially multiple slashes. And so for those, what we're going to do is a really clever trick using arrays to get in and out and fix this. So we're going to say speech.split, and I'm going to split it on dots. Then, is it, no, I can't remember. Let's see where else I've done this, because I've definitely done this before. Split. Did I do it in this doc even? No. So let's go here and say dot split. I've done this a couple of places. Sound effect intent. Why don't I see it? Split and join. That's what I was thinking of. Goldzula, I did fix the issue. I don't know what I fixed. I didn't change anything or anything like that, but we are running. Yeah, it's running locally. So what I'm going to do is come back in here, and we're going to say split, and then we're going to say join, and instead of joining them on dots, we're going to join them on the word dot with spaces around it so that we don't run these words together. So that allows us to split on periods. So basically we take the word, the term that we have, which might be alexa.design / account linking, and we're going to take it and we're going to create an array where the periods become the dividers between the array. So if I split alexa.design / account linking, I would end up with the first value in my array being Alexa. The dot goes away, right? That's the delimiter. And then the design / account linking becomes the second value, or slot 1. Then I join them, which means I'm going to take all of the values in that array and I'm going to rejoin them, and I'm going to separate each value with the word dot. So this is a quick, easy way to do a master replace on your string without having to do some kind of iterative process or anything like that. I'm just splitting on periods. When I hit a period, I turn it into an array, and then I convert that array back to a string where I separate the values in the array by using the word dot. So that's an easy way to do that. Then we're also going to do speech equals. I don't think create my voice. I don't think that the /g works in replace. I don't believe that that's a parameter that you can put in there. Let's look. /g. No, let's do replace /g. I didn't think that this was a parameter that I could add to it. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize that it would work that way. I've played with this before, and I've written a bunch of different ways to solve this problem, but I always thought that I guess it's because I try to avoid regular expressions at all costs in my life, but maybe that's why. Okay. Well, I'm gonna stick. I like that the /g will solve the problem. I wonder what's faster. We're learning. We're all about learning here. So let's do speech.replace. And in your case, we want to do, what would I do? ./g like that. And then this would be dot. Doesn't like that. Do I have to escape that? Like that? Well, I don't know. We'll find out if that works. And then we could do this for the same thing, but instead of dot. How do I do a slash? Do I have to escape that somehow? Again, like I said, I avoid regular expressions at all costs. So, slash. What would you do for the slash part? No. Boom, boom. Boom. I don't like that it's turning green rather than... Or are you saying this? That doesn't seem very friendly either. I did try that. Doesn't like that either. You guys are discovering very quickly why I stay away from regular expressions. It just makes me angry. Does anyone else have a recommendation on how I do the slash? In 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, split join it is. How about, bracket slash? Or a fancy N. Ooh, that worked. It seemed to like that. Okay, we'll give this a try. It's no cost to try it, right? So if I say, tell me about the champions, let's see what she says now.
You asked me about Alexa champions. Undefined, you can find out more at http://alexa.de/champions.
I don't know why I tried that.
What would you like to know?
Since I didn't actually call the function. So that goes here, helper. I need to export it too, don't let me forget that. To speech. And that, and then we need to go back to helper and add this. What was it called? Convert. One more time. Let's try it this time.
You asked me about Alexa champions. Undefined, visit undefined for more information.
Oh.
What would you like to try?
Yeah, we got one more step we got to take. This is, you guys, this is going to blow your minds. In order for this to work, let's see if we can find it. There's one more thing we need to do. Does anyone know what it is? Goodness. Okay.
You asked me about Alexa champions. Undefined, to learn more. Check out dot 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 dot. What would you like to do next?
Cool, so we replaced every character with a dot. That's a win. Any thoughts on that one, Create My Voice? Because I didn't want to replace every character. I just wanted to replace the ones. We'll just do this while we're waiting. Speech equals speech dot split dot join dot speech dot split slash dot join slash Okay, so for this, we're going to say you want one of those. And I'll hold off. We'll do this. Whoa, not that. One more try. Let's see what we get this time.
You asked me about Alexa champions. Undefined, visit alexa.design/champions for more information. What would you like to try?
Say that again. Check this out. Repeat. Works everywhere.
You asked me about Alexa champions. Undefined, visit alexa.design/champions for more information. What would you like to try?
Well, that's just gorgeous. All right, so now we are saying our URLs properly. That's good news. The other thing that I wanted to add to this, if we come back to the answer intent. Well, thank you for the help there, Create My Voice. We got it figured out. Gold Zulu between the two of us and Crazy Bone. You guys got me where I needed to be. I'm going to leave my version in there and comment it out, but it's working. That's the good news. We should see. Let's try one that has multiple dots, like AWS. Tell me about AWS.
I don't have a record for WS. My apologies. I'll do some research. Instead, I picked a random topic for you. I don't have a record for AWS.
What?
My apologies. I'll do some research. Instead, I picked a random topic for you. State management. Undefined, what would you like to do next? You asked me about Amazon Web Services, or AWS Undefined. To learn more, check out aws.amazon.com. What would you like to try?
Gorgeous. All right, looks really, really good. Undefined is a cool Twitch username. That would be a cool Twitch username. I'm guessing somebody probably has that, though, right? Should we see? Give them a little fame. Twitch.tv. Undefined. That would break a lot of things. At least in my systems it would. Wow, this guy's had 6 million views. And doesn't seem to be using it very much. What's the video story? Never done a video, but has had 6.5 million people have viewed his page, I guess, since he's never had a video. Crazy. All right, so the other thing that I wanted to do here is that I want to do a card. So let's talk about our situations. In this case here, if we have one item, we want to write the card data Yep, I totally agree. I think that's probably why. They have a lot of people viewing their stuff. That's pretty funny, though. Okay, so if I have one value and there's card data, let's see if we can just do it this way. Because the only time we want to do it is for A and C. So we're going to do right here, like here-ish. We're going to do handler input dot response builder dot with simple card. And this is going to be answer dot fields. No, I don't want that. I want the name value that I got. No, I don't, because I don't care about pronunciation. This is visual. It's visual, Jeff. Visual. Answer dot fields dot name, and the description is going to be answer Fields.card response. I think that's what I called it. Card response. Okay. So that's great, but we also need to do a conditional on this because we don't want to do it accidentally. So we'll take this. We'll say if card response exists, then send a card. And we'll do that here. And we'll do that down here. I don't need this console log. And I just found another issue with this. I do this down here. Did you mean? I'm fixing it in the get disambiguation, but I'm not fixing it here where I get the field.name, so I think I need to do this here like that. And then this becomes name. And voice response. Okay. So what did I really just fix for myself? Now I'm writing a card when I ask this question, so we should be able to say, tell me about Amazon Web Services.
You asked me about Amazon Web Services, or AWS undefined. Visit aws.amazon.com for more information. What would you like to know?
That didn't seem to actually write a card. Did it not come through here? That didn't actually do that. It's saved. Well, how do I do this? Because I don't want to do it in this case. In the middle case, I would not want to write a card. I thought I could just do this. Handler input.response builder dot with simple card. Pretty confident I can do this anywhere that I want to. Come on. With simple card. I don't want to have to do it all in the same call. I didn't think I had to do that. Goldzool, I'm trying to write a card. When I get an answer for a user, I should be able to produce a card for them that, I mean, I don't want to do a simple card all the time. Okay, we'll do this another way that I've seen this, which is I'm going to do this. Let RB equal handler input.response builder. Okay, so we'll do that. And then here I can say, instead of handler input dot, Jomo Code, good morning. We can say RB here. I don't think I need to do this, but we'll try it. RB with simple card there, and RB with simple card here. Like that, and then this return. Now it's all the same reference. I didn't think that I had to do this, but let's see. So now if I say, tell me about Joe, since he's here.
You asked me about Joe Moyo. Undefined. Visit twitter.com/JoeMoCode for more information. What would you like to do next?
That's good. Did we get a card for him? Why is there no card for him? Why is there not a card being created? Seems very odd. Oh, I know why. I know why. This is dumb. This is just me being dumb. Because I put a conditional around this that said if they don't have any card data, don't do anything. So let's try and see if we get a card for me, since I think I have. Tell me about Blankenburg. This is just a lack of data issue. Don't want to write a card if I don't have any data.
You asked me about Jeff Blankenburg.
Boom.
Jeff Blankenburg is an Alexa evangelist at Amazon. You can find him on Twitter, Twitch, and GitHub as at Jeff Blankenburg. Visit jeffblankenburg.info for more information. What should we do now?
Okay, so I have Jeff Blankenburg as an Alexa evangelist. You can find him everywhere at Jeff Blankenburg. I obviously would want to tweak this a little bit. But it seems like I could actually put a bunch of URLs and stuff in here. Like if we wanted to do, let's go look at my record. Go away. Jeff Blankenburg. Okay. So in here, let's look at this. Jeff Blankenburg, you can find him everywhere as Jeff Blankenburg, but I think I can do like this. Boom, 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 boom. And then I can say, yeah, good morning, Clark Cell. Let's do Blankenblog. And this is why we have different values. The delimiters make a difference depending on the platform that you're on. For cards, it's a \n, but I can do Blankenblog. I could do http github.com/Jeff Blankenburg /n/n http twitter.com/Jeff Blankenburg /n/n, and then we'll do twitch.tv/Jeff Blankenburg. Like, you can't send links in cards, Gold Zulu. You can't send clickable links. You can absolutely send links. And so now it should look like this. So tell me about Blankenburg. We'll do the same thing. We're going to get the same response. I'm going to mute just so we don't need to hear her say my name 17 times again. But in my content, you can see that I have these /n's all in here. And if we go look at this, it didn't work. Well, that's super cool. It used to work. Why didn't that work? Let's go back to our data. Maybe I can just do the line breaks. So we'll do that. And we'll do this. Get out of my face. And we'll do that. And then we'll do the last one, which is this. What about just line breaks in there like that? How do you like that noise? Boom. That's the card I'm looking for. So, yeah, there's nothing clickable about these links, but what's nice about these is that you can copy them. So I can at least let a developer that wants to get this information grab any of these links and copy them and go do and whatever. But they're not clickable. And I want to actually see. I think they're copyable in the card also in the app. Let me confirm that. Come on. 11:34 already. Maybe not. It appears they're not even copyable. So I was trying to show you my phone. You can see that the card shows up really nicely. I get the glare off the screen. The card shows up really nicely. I can do this for you too. maybe. Come on, there we go. Get my face off the screen. You can see that I get that really nice view there, but the problem that I have with this is that they're not clickable, they're not copyable. So on your phone, you wouldn't have access to this. But if you go to alexa.amazon.com, get my face out of the way, then you would have access to that stuff. So there we go. So we've learned a little bit of something today about how URLs are stored in Airtable and how those translate to card line breaks. But it works now. So I can come in here for each one of these records, and I think I did that. Like if I go look at a Kirsch's list, and I'll have to have the rest of my team fill their stuff out. We did the same thing here. So I guess I already knew that, but I was thinking that I could just drop new lines in there. I know for screen, they use HTML breaks. So if I'm just doing standard SSML, not SSML, standard APL, and I just want to put some text on the screen, if I want line breaks, I can put them in just like that, and they work wonderfully. But these individual line break solutions oftentimes require me to have different values, which is why I have card response and screen response. Now I could probably just insert the appropriate delimiter in my code rather than having multiple versions of this content, but there's still the good chance that a card I could put a lot of content in, and maybe for APL I only want to put a short sentence or something on the screen. There's the possibility that I would want them to be different, more so than just by changing the delimiter. So I find it comforting to be able to just have multiple copies. And if they're the same, that's fine. But I think this is a nice way to be able to manage my content in multiple ways. And so Kirsch is in there. I have his pronunciation and all that stuff is working. So I feel pretty good about this. So my question for all of you, and this includes folks like Jomo, and if Let My People Code is still here, I would love to know, as we think about people saying things, let's go look at the model for a second, the answer intent. Get back to the top of this page. So I go to my answer intent, which is here, and I have people say things like, what is this? Or can you tell me about? Or where can I learn about this thing? I would imagine that all of us have that question sometimes, like, Alexa, tell me where this thing is, or how do I find this? I have a short list. My list is actually very short. The total number of records I have right now is 99, and 10 or so of those are the people on the team. But I would imagine there's many, many more things that you guys would want to know or look up, and sometimes it's hard because if you know it exists, sometimes it's hard to know like what you don't know. So this is a tough question to ask, but as I go through this, I keep thinking, man, there's got to be like 800 more things I could put in this list. And I don't know the right way to go about them or how to quantify what all these things should be. But I'm definitely going to go through and make sure all of the items that are in this list are here and ready to go. But I'm always curious from all of you, am I touching on the right things? Like, where can I find some training videos, or how do I find out about doing text messaging? And again, with synonyms, we would have things like SMS, SNS. As I continue to fill out my synonyms, this is one of those things, again, if you guys haven't been following along, I have a column here called Alexa slot values, and this auto-generates all the JSON that I need for my slot. And so you can see I just did text messaging and I added those two synonyms. I have this JSON right here. This makes it very, very easy for me to take this whole column, copy it, come over to my slot, which we will find down here somewhere. Those are sound effects. Oh my goodness. Let's see if we can find this in a more proper way rather than just scrolling. We should be able to do... that one's called APL template. This one's called display template. And down here, sound effects. So I'm going to look for something like this. We're going to do find name. This is going to be answer. So then I'm going to take this, and I'm just going to jam my way down to the bottom and find my last answer, which is this. Oh, I just did that. Oh, let's go back to the top. Slots, sample, no. This. So I'm going to take my value, take this, jam to the bottom, take this out like so, delete. So you can see I have my answer slot still here, and all I'm going to do is take those values that I just had and I just paste them in. It auto-generated all the JSON that I needed and I can paste them all in. The one catch is that my script does not get rid of the trailing comma, so I have to remember to delete that trailing comma. And I save, and it remunges it all for me. But that's good. Now I have all of, like, any changes that I've made to my data, specifically the values or the synonyms, that can happen anytime. I'm constantly editing this table and fixing things. But when I need to update it, all I need to do is come in and grab that JSON, paste it into my model, and deploy it again, and boom, I have all my new synonyms, all my new slot values. Makes it really, really easy. And I'm not like typing my way or managing my way through a JSON file and making sure that I made all the changes. I just get to blow it away and import. Now, where I should get is I should build a script that actually rips the data out of here and updates the file for me automatically. That's a little more complex. I haven't done that yet, but that makes a huge, huge difference. And in fact, I'll do this for you just to make your life a little easier, Adev. If you're already using Airtable, this is the formula that I wrote. Whoa, let's not do that. This is the formula that I wrote in order to do that. Now, you'll have to have columns called synonyms and name, but if you have those two columns, or you can just change them here, this generates that JSON for you. So I'll take this. Let's go to Twitch. And I'll paste this into the chat box for you. So that if you want to grab this formula, you can, because this is not in my GitHub anywhere. So, like, so there you go. So that will generate the perfect JSON for you for all of your values that you have in a table. You could even use this, even if you're not using it as your backend service. This might be a good way to manage your slot values, because then you can generate that JSON. And so this does conditions on, like, does synonyms exist? It doesn't put quotes in places when it doesn't need to. There's a lot of things that are happening there, but basically I'm substituting out. You'll also want to catch that, because the example I just gave you, substituting out underscores, and I actually don't want to do that for this example. I did want to do it for the sound effects, so I'm going to get rid of that piece because I don't really need that part. Let me show you. Yeah, I want to save. Let me show you what that means. So in my value here, like dialog managed display directives, but if we go look at my sound effect table, which is, back up, sound effect table, all the sound effects have names with underscores in them, so they look like these. But if I want people to be able to say the names of these, Joe, I'm totally sending links in a card. Check me out. Are they clickable? 100% no. But am I sending links? Totally, yeah. You're allowed to send links. You're just not allowed to be able to, you're not allowed to be able to, they can't be clickable. There's no way to make them clickable. But you can totally send a link. It's just that someone's going to have to copy it out. And on top of that, in the Alexa app, at least on iPhone, they're not even copyable. But I can still send that information, and if somebody then wants to type it in, or if they come to alexa.amazon.com, you can copy them right out of here. Yeah, you cannot even copy a card from the Alexa app, which is really unfortunate. But it seems like copying should be fine. I don't know why we didn't enable that, but oh well. That's something that I'm definitely doing. So, Adev, I'm glad I made your day. Keeping an Airtable for maintenance, dude, it makes it so much easier. Even if you're not using it for a back end, like being able to generate this JSON for yourself, just have a column called synonyms. The way mine works is they're just comma delimited. So if you somehow have a slot value that has commas in it, which I hope you don't, then you would have to tweak my formula just a little bit. I did have this in one case where, for a trivia game, the answer was, or for my scavenger hunt, the answer was 3 last names. And originally I was thinking, I just need to, like, it'd be Smith, Jones, Brown, right? Those are the 3 last names. But I don't need to comma delimit them for the user to be able to say that. So they could just say Smith, Jones, Brown. And I was thinking that I needed to separate up my commas, but that's not how any of Alexa works. You don't need that punctuation. So all of my slot values, are my synonyms, are separated by commas in this box. And then what happens over here is it takes those synonyms, wraps them in quotation marks, and comma delimits them over here. Well, I'm glad to hear it, man. I'm glad people are using Airtable. I don't want to be like the pro endorser of Airtable. I think that they're doing a lot of cool stuff, but there's also 100 other database solutions out there that you could be using. So if there's something you're comfortable with, use that instead. But man, there's a lot of things, especially for Alexa, that just make my life a lot easier, and so I tend to keep coming back to it for that purpose. Especially because for most applications, it's also free. So that's another big piece of this, is that if you can get away with doing it for free, you should. Okay, so where does that leave us? What did we just do? We talked about my randomization stuff with Airtable this morning. Then we refactored some things to talk to new tables so that we could reorganize our speech cons and our synonyms. We talked about pronunciation, and we fixed some pronunciation issues inside our skills so that we're always saying a Kurstrivastava the appropriate way, and not in a way that would offend him and his family every time they heard it. That's most of what we've gotten done today in these 2 hours, and explaining myself sometimes takes some time, so that has been a big piece of this. But I think we're probably at a good stopping point. The next things that I really need to focus on is I need to revisit this piece, this card piece, because I want to be able to provide as much useful information to a developer as I can when they're using the skill. So this skill's not nearly as intuitive as some other skills might be, because there's a natural purpose for how you're using most skills. For this one, I mean, you really have to understand, like, what can I do? I'm a developer. I want to be able to do this stuff. What is it that I can do? And so how do I tell you that you can hear any speech con, any sound effect, anything? I think one of the things that I'm going to have to do, let me add this as a to-do in here, is that I have this welcome message, but I think I actually want to have like a, if this is a user's first time, give them more background information about what is possible. Okay, so I've got that in there just so I don't forget. We'll clear all these to-dos before we ever go to production. And then I also need somewhere, we'll just put it on our main index up here at the top. Come on. Write cards for literally everything. That's a good piece of feedback for myself, so that any time that the user interacts with the skill, if it makes sense to write a card, I should. Give them reference material, a link, whatever. Because hearing Alexa say, go to alexa.design/account linking is good, but it's gone the moment you hear it. If you didn't remember what that was, then you're not going to hold on to it. Write cards for literally everything. There was something else that I wanted to do too. I think in the get user record, in here is where I want to do, this is where I say, I got to do something like right in here. So if the user is being created, mark a flag to indicate this is the first time using the skill. And that'll allow us to call out and get the appropriate data from the appropriate table. And then there's one more thing we can add as like to-do items, which is TODO, get all of the speech content into the database. I think that's what we'll do tomorrow afternoon. There's lots and lots of places. As we look at my handlers here, we'll just go through the handlers themselves. Answer intent. Little things like, did you mean? Or I found this many things, right? These things need to be moved into my database and set with a locale, because that's not how I would say it in German. That's not how I would say it in Japanese. And so if I want to be able to do this, then I need to move all of these strings out into a data table that I can then retrieve whenever I need them by locale. So that's another big piece that I'm going to have to do, and maybe we can spend some time tomorrow afternoon working on that, depending on my crazy schedule. But you see, I have lots of little snippets that I just wrote for right now, knowing that I will eventually have to remove all these. What do we do if they've heard all the things? I haven't solved that one yet. This one is done, though. If they said something we didn't expect, save missed value. So I'm doing that so we can get rid of this to do. Yeah, that's this is all stuff that we'll have to figure out. But that is, I think that's where we're leaving today. I think that's where we'll wrap up. But we have lots and lots of cool stuff to work on for tomorrow, including figuring out how to give the user more information about how the skill works when they start, writing cards everywhere that it makes sense, because there's lots of handlers already that don't have any card writing, and then get all of the speech content into the database. I think we'll spend some time really thinking about that, and maybe tomorrow will be when we add at least the other English-speaking locales, because they can pretty much use the same content. So we'll have to figure that stuff out too. All right, so that's it for me today. Thank you guys all for tuning in and joining in conversation and all that stuff. I really do appreciate it. And like I said, we've tweaked the schedule a little bit. I'm still on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, 10 to noon Eastern, but we have added Tuesday from 2 to 4, and I'm still mucking with Thursdays. Schedules are weird, and there's lots of meetings I seem to have on Thursday afternoons. Since my team all works on the West Coast, my afternoons are their mornings. But I will continue to work and maybe just surprise and show up when things happen on Thursday. So if you're not following me, make sure to drop a follow so that you get those notifications. Let My People Code mentions that don't forget Alexa Game Chat at 1 today. That's 1 p.m. Pacific time, so that's 4 p.m. Eastern. But don't forget to hop over to the Alexa Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Amazon Alexa, where they're going to be playing and reviewing games. So make sure to check that out. Tomorrow morning, Amit and I will be back, and we'll be reviewing other Alexa skills that mostly aren't games. But thank you guys all for tuning in. Join us on these shows. We're so glad to have you, and we'll see you all again very,